Good morning. Tim John here for the Blue Ridge Leader. And we're speaking this morning at the Arcola Pleasant Valley Fire Department with Supervisor Stevens Miller, representing the Dulles District for Loudoun County. And speaking of little old Loudoun County, we understand that Chairman Scott York was talking before the Chamber of Commerce, state of the county, that kind of thing. How do you think we're doing these days?
I think we're doing pretty well. I think we could always be doing better.
Yeah.
2 budgets back, we actually lowered the average tax bill in the county. I was very proud of that accomplishment. This cycle, we had to raise the average tax bill. I wish that hadn't been necessary, but prices have gone up, and sometimes that's what happens in a high-growth community like ours. Most of my constituents understand that, but we do our best to keep taxes under control.
Well, it's funny, 2.5 months ago, the budget was the biggest story around, and we have kind of short-term memories around. Now it's what budget? What was the tax rate set at? And
I still hear from my constituents about it. They don't forget.
I'm sure they know how to get a hold of you.
They do indeed.
Telephone calls. Well, what are some of the pluses right now, particularly looking from your perspective? Dulles Airport, things are moving up. We got the underground train system underway there.
Well, we've got the review of the countywide transportation plan that's coming to a head. An awful lot of citizen involvement has led to that being the best that I think it can be. It's not perfect, but that's an opportunity for us to make some adjustments as we expand over the next 20 years to the peak build-out, they call it, the sort of maximum capacity of the county. That's going very well.
Well, and speaking of transportation, you're going to have the Dulles Rail Project coming to Dulles Airport.
Yep.
A little bit of talk about some different possible funding mechanisms for that, or is that still in place with the B-pole, etc.?
Well, I think the funding mechanisms are not 100% locked down. They are for phase one. The rail all the way up to the airport is, as I believe, is as definite as it can be.
Right.
And I have great confidence that we're going to see the remaining phase that will bring 2 stops past the airport into Loudoun County. I'm not really worried about that. There is some flexibility in the final location, specifically the station at 606, the Route 606 station on the Greenway. I'd like to see that moved a little bit west because there's a landowner there who could build a convention center, could be a real commercial asset to the county. We've been talking to the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority about that, and that kind of discussion is still ongoing. There's also a lot of discussion with the supervisors from Fairfax and members of the town council in Herndon. Mr. York and I participate in an interjurisdictional series of meetings with some of their membership. We're trying to make sure that we do the best job we can of building around the metro stations that'll be over there.
Well, how do you think MWA is doing on the overall rail project? I know there's a little bit of a buzz when it was transferred to them, but
I think that was a good idea. I think their management track record is very good, and Mr. Bennett's leaving, and that's going to make a difference. I have a lot of respect for him, but I believe that the organization as a whole will do well. I've spoken with Mike Riley about the possibilities, and Denny Martier, they're members of the MWA board. They're following this sort of thing closely, and generally speaking, I think if we work with them and cooperate, the airport can become the hub of the commercial growth that this county needs.
Well, they know how to build things.
Yeah, they do.
So you have some time left on this term in your board. Go up for re-election if that's your choice in, 2011, next year?
That's right, next year.
What else do you want to work on in the next, 18 months or so and be able to say, this is what I accomplished on this term for the Loudoun County Board for Dulles?
Well, we have a few decisions coming up in the near term. There's an application for a large multi-use development called Kincora that would be sort of across the street on the west side of 28.
And the stadium's already approved, right?
The stadium's required a special exception. Now that's a subtle issue, Tim, because the stadium is presently intended to be funded, or the loan that will fund it is collateralized by part of the project that we have yet to decide on. It's not a certainty yet that that application will go one way or the other, but that's going to be a big decision that's in front of us. I mentioned the countywide transportation plan. We have the Chesapeake Bay Protection Ordinance that we're looking at.
But not everybody agrees on that, right?
Well, not everybody has, I think, the full set of facts, and that's unfortunate because it's evident already that some people are deliberately spreading what are outright lies about it to scare some folks. The thing that people are hearing about the Chesapeake Bay Protection Ordinance is mostly being given to them by folks who are opposed to it and who apparently have no scruples. I got a couple of calls yesterday, mostly from people who wanted me to know that someone had tried to lie to them. My constituents are not easy to fool. But they'd gotten robotic calls telling them all sorts of ridiculous untruths about this being a new tax. It's not a tax. What it's intended to do, and if it's passed it just might do, is keep our streams and our ponds clear so that they don't get covered in pond scum and algae blooms, they don't end up smelling bad, and it'll do it by preserving the vegetation that filters water at the edge of those bodies of water. So it'll keep Loudon looking beautiful. It will cost nothing to have this filter effect from the natural benefit that Mother Nature gives us with this vegetation, and that keeps our property values high, and our water is safe to drink, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to purify it. So it's an anti-water pollution ordinance, and if it works, it's going to save us money and keep our property values high and prevent us from having to do draconian things like tell people they can't use nitrogen-based fertilizer. A lot of folks have asked me, why doesn't this regulate fertilizer if it's intended to protect the water? The whole idea there is not to have to regulate your fertilizer so you can keep using it and have a beautiful green lawn and your property values stay high. But there are a couple of vicious folks out there seeking to mislead the public. They're having very little effect of doing so. What they're doing is they're making people mad because now those folks realize someone didn't respect them enough to tell them the truth. My voters don't like that.